All right, so I just got back from my latest auction bids and wins, and this is what I got. If you can take a look at that, you can see there's a lot of wire there. Now that's not what the pictures look like. I'm going to show you a picture of the auction. This was an online auction. So there's this here. This was one auction, and then this whole setup here was a second lot in the same auction. But I'm going to show you a picture of what I was basing my bid on. So as you see, the picture that you seen this here, the auctioneer advertised including garden hose. There was very little mention about anything else in here. And I seen it. I seen that there was some wire buried into this little tub right here, and a couple of these straps here that I rolled them up, and a couple mirrors, which whatever. But as I looked at that, I was basing my bid on. I seen that there was 3 spools of wire in there. If you look close, you can see that there was a black one, a white one, and a green one. So I'm looking at it from the picture. I'm thinking it's 12 gauge wire. I made my bid according to that. This right here, there was obviously a lot of wire in there, but I couldn't tell from the picture if it was 12 gauge or 10 gauge. And I actually set my bid set on 10 gauge. And I was guessing that there was about 1,000 foot of 10 gauge wire in that. Not to mention, you could see this wire in there. I couldn't really see any of that. I didn't see any of this. This is all 2-aught wire. There's four strips of that, and they're about 5 feet long. I blame this auction mishap on the auctioneer. They should have better advertised that. But it worked out to my benefit, because this isn't 10 gauge wire. It's actually 8 gauge wire. So a whole lot better, and there's a whole lot of it in there. And then like I said, you got this. This is like a 14. I don't know what you would call it. It's if you can look at that, that's 14 gauge wire, and there's 25 strands in there. And then you've got this wire right here. This is I believe 10 gauge wire, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that one. So, and then there's some conduit, and you know what? There's actually some more wire down here. Let me dig down here. There's some more buried right here. This here would be, yeah, that's more 8 gauge. So, yeah, I think I did pretty good on this. And I'll show you my invoice on that. These auctions are getting ridiculous with their buyer fees. This particular one was 18% plus 7.75% sales tax. Same with this one here. They're the same thing. 18%. These guys are getting ridiculous in my opinion. But anyway, so I ended up paying $60 for this lot right here, plus the 18%, and then the buyer or the sales tax is on top of even the buyer's fee, which is ridiculous. And I paid $35 for that. Let me show you what this one here is. This isn't just garden hose like the picture advertised. This is 3 full spools of 10 gauge wire. These are 500 foot spools. If you can see that, 500 foot spool, 3 of them. 10 gauge wire. Now, I really don't want to strip this down. This is maybe something that I should either keep or maybe look into selling. I paid $35 for this whole thing. Obviously, this is just going to go in the garbage. These straps are nice. I'll keep them. I like them. There's a couple of fittings down in here. Not a big deal. And the mirrors, they'll probably just, I don't know, go in the garbage. I don't know. But that wire, that just seems too good to strip down. I don't know. This stuff here is just all a big mess, so I'm definitely going to strip that down, no problem. And this 8-gauge wire. It looks like it's about half full, and that was a 500-foot spool. So yeah, we're gonna have fun with this in here. We're gonna get into making some money on this. So like I said, all together $35, $60 plus the fees. I think it come up to 120 bucks, something like that. We're gonna see if we can't break this down and possibly double our $120, turn this into 240. So let's get working on that. Okay, I think I'm gonna start by stripping down this is 2-aught wire. Not to be confused with 2-gauge wire. This is 2-aught. This is a lot bigger, a lot thicker. I'm gonna cut these in half, then we're going to strip them down, and then I'm gonna weigh them. Just see what we got off of this right here. All right, I'm just gonna use my ratcheting cutters to cut these in half, just to make them easier to handle. Twice was easier. All right, so here we have all that 2-aught wire stripped down. Let's go ahead and weigh this up. Turn on that scale there, zeroed out, and put that down there, and we come up with 9 pounds. Okay, so 9 pounds times the Bear Bright price in my area, which is $3.70, and we come up with $33.30. So we are almost halfway to the full price that I paid for this, plus we have all of this to go. And I realize some of that's just conduit and PEX line and stuff, but we got a lot of wire in here to go. I think we're going to do pretty good on this auction right here. I'm already excited. All right, as you can see, I didn't record it. I forgot to hit the record button. We finished this spool out right here. This was 8-gauge, and this was a 500-foot spool, but I don't think there was 500 feet on it. Let's go ahead and weigh up what we got here. So we got this bucket on here. I'm going to tear the weight out here. So we have an empty bucket, and I'm going to stuff all the copper in there. All right, there we go. Now it's got some weight to it, that's good. All right, we're zeroed out on that, and we come up with 12.45 pounds. All right, let's figure out what we're at so far. All right, with 12.45 pounds, at $3.70 a pound, that's $46.07. So my auction bid was $60 plus 18% and 7 3/4% sales tax. So we're up to $79.37, and we still have all of this to go. So we are looking really good. All right, let's keep on working. All right, so as I was stripping that wire, I didn't mention that we're gonna start stripping that spool down, but you've seen what we got out of it. This is what we got, and I messed up on the recording and forgot to hit the record button, but we weighed it all up, and that was that spool. But now we're gonna move over into this big rat's nest worth of wire right here. This is all 8-gauge wire, same thing, but I'm gonna show you how I calculate, how I decide how much I'm gonna bid on something. If you know a few numbers, it can greatly help you. One would be the weight, one would be the length, and obviously the gauge is going to help you out. So we know this is 8-gauge. How much is in there? I have no idea, but I'm gonna show you how I calculate how much is here by the weight. So we're gonna scale this up here. Let me get that scale turned on. And, it's kind of complicated, but it's my method and it works for me. So we're gonna weigh this up. Get this all off the ground. 79. We got 79 pounds. It's all off the ground. And 79 pounds of wire weight is what we have. Now let me show you what I'm gonna do to calculate and determine how many feet's in that. Okay, so now we have two key factors in there. We know how much it weighs and we know what gauge it is. So I have a chart that has all the gauge weights on it and stuff like this. This is 8-gauge THHN coated wire. And according to my chart, 1,000 foot of 8-gauge wire weighs 63 pounds. So how much does that weigh per foot? You just take that 63 pounds, divide by 1,000, you come up with 0.063 foot per pound, or pounds per foot. So we know that we have 79 pounds. We just divide it by the 63 and we come up with this 1.25. And then you just multiply that 1.25 by the 1,000 feet, and that gives you 1,250 feet. So now we know how many feet's in there, approximately. So now the next number is the 8-gauge. What does it weigh bare? After we strip it all down, according to my chart, 8-gauge wire weighs 51 pounds. It doesn't matter how much coating's on it. It doesn't matter anything. If you have 1,000 feet of 8-gauge wire, it's going to weigh 51 pounds. So I just do the same math there. 51 pounds divided by the 1,000 feet, and we come up with 0.051 pounds per foot. So we know we got 1,250 feet. You just multiply 1,250 by the 0.051, and you come up with 63.75 pounds. So after I strip this wire down, I'm going to show you, see how close my calculation is. We should have about 63 to 64 pounds. And then you take that and you multiply that by Bear Bright price that it's selling for. And I should be getting $235.88 out of that rat's nest that we're going to get ready to strip down. All right, so let's go ahead and strip that down and see how close we are. So Charlotte and I are going to get ready to strip that down. I'll probably put it in fast mode and maybe put a little music on while we're stripping this down. Okay, here we go. All right, now I have to do a do-over. I was preparing this wire to start stripping, and then this is just half of it. The other half is right here. I discovered this isn't 8-gauge, this is 6-gauge, so that's going to weigh a lot more. So I want to be pretty accurate on this, so we're going to go ahead and weigh up this 6-gauge, and we'll strip that down, and I'll use my same calculations, but only I will use them with the 6-gauge chart instead of the 8-gauge chart. All right, so we got our scale at 0, and this bunch of wire gets off the ground. All right, that comes up to 32 pounds. All right, 32 pounds. Let's just use the chart and recalculate how much this is in feet and how much it's going to weigh when I strip it down. Okay, so I recalculated it. Same process, just using different numbers. This is now 6-gauge, which coated weighs 96 pounds per 1,000 feet. We had 32 pounds, so I just did the 32 pounds divided by the 96 pounds that it weighs per 1,000. That gives me 0.33, and then you take that multiplied by the 1,000, you get 330 feet. So I got 330 feet of 6-gauge wire. Doing the same process. 6-gauge bare weighs 81 pounds. That's an important number to know. So You just do the same process, and I come out with 26.73 pounds at 370. It's $98.90. Okay, so I recalculated the 8 gauge at 47 pounds. I just took the 79 pounds of all that wire minus the 32 pounds of the 6 gauge. So 47 pounds, same calculation. It's 63 pounds per 1,000 foot. So I divided the 63 by 47, come up with 0.74, multiply that by 1,000 feet, and you come up with 740 feet of the 8 gauge wire. And the bare weight of 1,000 feet is 51, which gives you a multiplier of 0.051. Multiplied that by the 740 feet, and that gives me 37.74 pounds. So 37.74 pounds times 370 for the cost of bare bright. It's 139.64 plus the 98.90 for the 6 gauge, and I'm expecting to get $238 out of these 2 rolls here. All right, let's get stripping the wire. Here's all the bare bright that we got out of the 8 gauge wire, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in a bucket and weigh it and see how good my calculations were. All right, bring it over here. All right, I'm going to turn the scale on here, and we're going to weigh up this 8 gauge wire that I said we should have 37 point some pounds. Now this bucket weighs 2 pounds, so I'll have to take 2 pounds off of that. And that is all on there, and we come in at 38.25 minus 2 pounds, 36.25. And I said we should have 37.74, so 36.25. Hey, that's real close. We're in the ballpark, so this is a good calculation to use. I know it sounds complicated, but it's what I use, and it's working for me. I was a pound off. I can deal with $3.70. All right, so let's go ahead and strip down the 6 gauge and see if we can't come up with 26.73 pounds. Okay, so this is all the bare bright wire that we got from the 6 gauge. We're gonna weigh this up here. Got the bucket on there. Tear that out. So we're at zeros. And load this into the bucket. And let's see what we come up with. 28.45. So 28.45, and I had calculated that we should have 26.73, so a little bit better. So using my calculations, I came up with 139.64 and 98.90 for a total of 238.54. The real scale out was 134 and 105 for 239.40. So it's darn close. This was calculated and this was actual. So $239, and we can throw that on top of the $79 that we pulled out of the other wire that I stripped. And that gives me a grand total of $318.77. So $318.77 off of a $120 auction, and I said I was trying to get 240, so I went above and beyond that. And also, that does not include this wire right here, which I'm going to probably sell to the scrap yard. This 1425 stuff, and then I'll strip this down here, make a few more bucks on that. And I'm still deciding what to do with this. There's $149 using my calculation. There's $149, $150 worth of bare bright right there. But I'm thinking if I can find somebody that wants to buy it for, you know, more than 150 bucks, I'll take that into consideration. But we had an awesome auction. This was a great auction. I'm excited. We made lots of money. Anytime you can double your money, that's a great day. It's a great auction, and it's a good day on the Gary and Charlotte scrapping show. That's why we do this. It's fun. Sometimes you, as you've seen in other videos, you make $5, $6, $7. Other times you make a couple hundred. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I gotta get this scrap to the scrap yard so I can get paid. Thanks for watching.